ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to another edition of DIY Money.
DIY Money.
What's shaking? Hey, Howard.
Having a hard time with my mic today.
Yeah, what's going on there?
I didn't position it before.
Yeah,
I'm ready.
all
And
right.
DIY Money.
And DIY Money. Welcome back. We're wrapping up our series today. This was really an organic series. We didn't pre-plan this. I mean, once it started, we kind of pre-planned it.
Sure.
It was kicked off by a podcast we did that was just titled Stop It. And it got a tremendous amount of positive response, and I think it resonated with a lot of people, which, listen, we're human, and sometimes we stray off course, reminded us of why we started this podcast in the very beginning. And the reason was not to, and mind you, I've loved all the questions about all the uniqueness of, IRAs and Roth IRAs and complexities here and so forth, but it wasn't about that. The desired goal was to help people that would never step foot in our office, not because you're in California and you have a complex question about your 401k or your IRA and you're not going to step foot in our office, but because you normally would not engage a financial advisor when you're running out of money before you run out of month. Or you just married your spouse, you're totally not on the same page with money, and it's destroying your family. So instead of that roadblock of somebody going, well, I don't have any money, why would I talk to a financial advisor? That's what this podcast and brand is for. That's what this whole thing is about. And we have kind of rewrited the ship, had a come to Jesus moment, and it's like, no, we're going back to the basics, and this is what we're talking about. So,
and
now,
similarly with the questions, it's over time, it's gotten from, well, what is a 401k, which is what we want to be addressing. Those are the kinds of people that we want to be able to have this resource for. And we've gotten into Mega Dax or Roth in the pension program.
And listen,
blah,
I'm not
blah.
going to short that. That is a strong thing. And if we lose a variety of our audience members because of that, I will hate to see you go. But there are a tremendous amount of resources out there that can cater to that. I don't believe there are a tremendous amount of resources that are there to, from where we sit, which is typically a higher level in finance, coming back down to where we all were at some point in our life, empathizing and helping an individual go from point A to point B, C, D, E, and F. That's what we're trying to do. I've been revitalized, re-energized through that. The tribe is open. We're back on social media. I mean, it just, and for those of you out there who are fans of the show, I think some of you know that my wife and I, a year or so ago, kicked off a high school program. And the high school program was to go into the classroom and educate kids about finance, investing, managing real money, with the goal of when that money grows, which, by the way, it's not growing right now. It's actually receding, but it will grow over time, those proceeds going back into the school for scholarships. We're going to expand that program. We're expanding that program in our local community. We want to ultimately expand that program in our state. And ultimately, I mean, I'm a big dreamer. I want to expand that program nationally. This fits hand in glove with that. So, all right, I'm going to get off that high horse. But keep the questions coming, because this is the last episode of kind of us just on our soapbox ranting about various topics. We'll get back to questions. Send those questions to podcast@DIYmoney.org. We have a great lineup of questions that have been coming in as we've been doing these podcasts. And remember, when we use that question on the show, we will send you a $25 Amazon gift card. That's a no-brainer. $25 Amazon gift card. You got a kid who's going into summer, and they're like, oh, do I make some money this summer, blah, blah, blah. Send in a question to DIY Money, and you get $25 on Amazon. Bada bing, right there.
And we love junior questions.
We love junior questions.
So
Absolutely.
If you're middle school, high school, we've had 8-year-olds before send in questions.
Yes.
Which were fire. But we want to get back to some of those elementary concepts, being able to help translate those and give a good resource that we don't see in a lot of spaces out there.
And that's a great segue to today's show, which is the final in this series, and it's called No Shortcuts. No shortcuts. What do we mean by that? A Howard.
Yeah, so on this money map journey, it's like the cheesiest thing we've ever done.
I love
it. I'm fine with it. The money map journey. We're looking out the distance. We figured out our goals. We figured out who we're going with. We figured out how we're going to get there. And then we're going to start on this journey. And I'll tell you, when you start on a path to financial freedom, you will have a slew of information hitting you constantly of get-rich-quick schemes and different shortcuts. And, well, don't invest slowly. Try to time the market and all of these crazy shortcuts. And it's so tempting when you're reading about this and when you're hearing about these ideas to ditch this plan, to go on the shortcut route. But inevitably, we see that lead to failure more times than success. And so I wanted to kick it back to start this episode. We started kind of the money map journey talking about Dave Ramsey's study that came out where he surveyed, I don't know how many thousands, I think, of millionaires and came up with data behind how they became successful. And one of the interesting pieces in this study is 75% of the people in this study indicated that the reason why they were successful was because of consistent investing over a long period of time. So these weren't people who won the lottery and threw all their proceeds in. They didn't find a 10-bagger stock and just put all their money in Bitcoin or whatever scheme or whatever different investing resource that could be a shortcut. Instead, they did it by doing a significant amount of money over a long period of time, investing over time and dollar cost averaging. Because we end the show saying it all the time, but the secret to wealth is very simple, and we mean that. It's to live on less than you make. You can't do it without living on less than you make. Invest the rest, and this is the key, do so for a very long time. It's not a quick turnaround or going pedal to the metal for 5 minutes or 10 years. It's the entirety of your life continuing on that journey. So, Quint, what are some of the most common shortcuts you see in this business, and how do we avoid those, or what are your thoughts on them?
Well, we're prone to this, I think, as a species, and people will play on this, whether it's, you might be too young for 12-minute abs. 12-minute abs or 5-minute abs or whatever it was, the ad that came out, only this amount of abs a day or work a day and you'll have this great 6-pack or 8-pack or whatever it may be. And we have this propensity to think I'm the one who can shortcut it. And we're all, I think, I'm not a psychologist, but I would say we are all prone to this idea. We know that to get from point A to point B, you just walk or you go or you drive and you just do it. But we want to kind of cut in to the next lane if it's moving a little faster. And I know all of us have been susceptible to driving down the highway and there's a little traffic issue and, the right lane's moving. And so you're like, okay, I got to get out of this left lane. This is ridiculous. You move into the right lane, and what happens? The right lane stops. And you're like, well, son of a gun. And it's like, well, then I'm going to move into the left lane. And I move to the left lane, and the left lane stops. And I do this. I constantly do this. And my wife will be like, honey, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. I just want to shortcut this nonsense traffic. So I have seen over the years this happens all the time. And it usually happens when one strategy starts to falter a little bit. Or there's this shiny other thing over here. So, for example, there's been countless studies done. The greatest asset class over time, basically over the last 50 years, 40 years, whatever it is, a long enough period of time, not 5 years, not even 10 years, is United States equities, okay? Buying into United States companies, publicly traded companies. Now, they typically will measure the S&P 500, which is going to include the largest largest companies in the United States. Companies, McDonald's, I was about to say General Electric, but they've been terrible of late. Nike, well, they've been terrible too. My goodness. Alphabet, NVIDIA, okay, Microsoft, etc. Yet, people gravitate to these other things constantly because they think that they can do better, because they've heard about so on and so forth, this person and that person. And so despite having the data that this asset class, now I'm not saying not to diversify, that's perfectly fine. Diversification within itself is positive. Bouncing because you think you can shortcut the time period it takes to get a decent rate of return to this opportunity or this asset class or that is dangerous. I love the conversation I hear when somebody says to me, oh my gosh, so-and-so bought this, $100,000 property and now it's worth $1 million. It was 20 years ago or whatever. And then if I have my phone, okay, I can't do time value of money in my head. I don't know anybody that can, but I can plug it in and I go, well, that's interesting. That's like a 5% rate of return. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, that's just 5% compounded over the last 20 years. Like, you could have done better in the S&P without the headaches of maintenance fees, HOA, insurance, whatever. And they're like, that's right. They're like, what? Are you serious? I'm like, yeah. The problem is they don't think in terms of long-term compounding. So the first mistake I see, or the pitfall that I see people make, is this sort of idea that they're going to skirt the process going in this particular area or that particular area. The other thing is the shiny thing that I talked about. And the shiny thing is every once in a while, something comes along that looks like, oh my gosh, this is the get-rich-quick opportunity. So lately, it's been crypto and the meme coins and so forth. And you will always hear about the person who put $5,000 into XYZ or this, and then they made $1 million, and isn't that amazing? You will never, ever hear about the other thousands of people who put money in to a GameStop or an AMC or whatever. I mean, that's not a crypto, but bear with me, or Dogecoin or whatever, and are down 90%. And you won't hear about those people. But guess what? You know what? I see those people because I'll get statements every once in a while in early meetings, and I'll see these, I call them zombie stocks, that they're in there, and they have maybe $1,000 worth or $2,000 worth. You might think to yourself, oh, there's just not much in there. But then when you look at the unrealized loss, it's a lot. It's like $50,000, $40,000. And so you say to that person, now tell me, and I don't say, why'd you lose 50 grand? I say, tell me about this AMC or I got this idea or I got this tip or I was watching this or I was doing this. So I put a little money in there and I thought it was, and it just didn't work. Wait, a little money? You put 50 grand in. Why did you? Now, the reason why they did that, it was a shiny thing. They thought they could take a shortcut, a quick opportunity to make riches, and it didn't work. It rarely works. Consistency, time, patience, that's what creates wealth. It's boring. It should be boring. I'm in a stage in my life right now, I'm trying to boringize everything in my life. I don't want excitement. This is enough excitement for me. Living vicariously through you, picking up your car, getting in the car with random strangers, hiking in, death trails, and I never want to hear about you on some, podcast of, true crime, all right? That should not happen. But I get my excitement doing this kind of thing. I don't want my excitement to come in my portfolio. I don't want my excitement to come in my investments. I want them to be boring. Boring. And I know that that's the secret to success. Boring, long-term, patience, etc. Pickaxe business. That's it. I'm the pickaxe guy. I'm just going to hit my pickaxe. Boof, boof, boof. That was me hitting my pickaxe.
The audio people are like, what is happening?
That was me hitting my pickaxe. You got to get on YouTube to see that.
It's a very subtle pickaxe.
Yeah, very subtle.
Here's what I'll say to that. I think it's interesting when we meet with clients. We at Jewel Financial, our sponsoring firm, who I don't think we've mentioned for a few episodes, and we're sponsored by them, and I'm saying Jewel Financial. Great, there it is. So when we meet with clients, we're going over their portfolios, and oftentimes we will get to this portion where we always list the equities first when we do our reviews, and a lot of times we're in passive index funds, and we're strategically in them, and we manage what areas of the market we're in, but we're not going out pursuing whatever shining stock is on the news that day or whatever people are talking about on the streets. We're pretty consistent in that. And then we have our fixed income portion. And that's, different bond positions that we own or treasuries or whatever. Then at the very end, we have a little bit of gold position in our portfolio. And I think it's mesmerizing because I don't often give those reviews. I'm more on the planning side of things, don't deal as much on investments, but I sit in and listen, and I'll watch people. And when we talk about the equities, they're leaned forward in their seats and their eyes are real big, and they'll see a name on there because we have some individual positions. They'll, oh, NVIDIA, and they'll light up like a Christmas tree. And then we get to the fixed income portion, and they're like, yeah, all right. And then we get to the gold. I mean, they're asleep across the table because there's nothing sexy about owning gold or bonds or treasuries. But without those, the volatility is absurd. And so we were actually, before we cut this podcast this morning, Quint and I were having a conversation about a client who has a portion of their investments at a different financial firm, and they're 100% aggressive. And she was talking about, oh, the returns are always amazing. I'm like, okay, how are they doing this year, right? Because there's nothing cute about being in a 60-40 portfolio and having 40% of your income in these boring treasuries and these bonds. But what's interesting is it almost seems like the clients who are the wealthiest that we work with more often than not almost have more on the fixed income side because they recognize that they don't want to go out and buy the shiny new stock and risk it all, but they've attributed wealth over time in accounts. And oftentimes it's not the people who are, as we talked about a few episodes ago, it's not the physicians and the neurologists and these fancy positions. It's teachers. Like, we work with millionaires who are teachers because they know that it's investing over time, not taking the shortcuts, and doing the right thing each and every day, and not just getting on sporadic sprints on different aspects of the trail.
And there's real pitfalls to this too, Allie. We've seen them over the years. The most recent was there were people who were, and again, I know it's getting a little in the weeds, but there were people who bought crypto like Bitcoin or Ethereum or something like that. So I would classify them as one of the big kind of three cryptos that, I tell people, if you want to own crypto, fine, buy Bitcoin or Ethereum. Not a recommendation, but stick with the big names, and be very, very leery of all the meme coins and all the nonsense. But there was this season where people could own their Bitcoin and they could basically stake it, which was a fancy term for letting another firm use it and loan it out to people who needed it for purchasing things in video games or products or services, etc. And they were paying a above average return. So you would take your Bitcoin, you would put it on this exchange, and you would start getting 9-10%. And the idea was, well, yeah, I could put it in my savings, my high yield savings account, and earn 3 or 4%. This is cash, by the way. Or I could buy Bitcoin, hope it goes up, stake it over here, and get 9%. Many of those companies that were doing that were the companies that went bankrupt. The Bitcoin on their balance sheet was a liability, and people lost everything. And I know people that happened to. Now, again, that wasn't a big shiny thing. The shiny thing for them might have been the Bitcoin itself, and they might have done very well. Maybe they understood it. But the shortcut, the dangerous shortcut was, I'm going to move to this company that's going to pay me above market rates. Well, the reason they're doing that is because there's inherent risk. That's why they have to pay you above market rates. We see this with dividend stocks a lot. People will be like, what do you think of company XYZ? It's paying a 15% dividend. I go, yeah, it's paying a 15% dividend, but they have no cash. They have to borrow every year to pay it. They're basically on the verge of bankruptcy. That's why their stock's down 50%. So, no, I have no desire to buy it. It's paying you 15% because they have to pay that amount of money to attract investors, which means there's extreme risk. I also tell people this. We get a lot of this with people, right? I don't care if they're teachers, they've been plumbers, doctors. Many of the folks that we work with at Jewel are wealthy. I mean, they've become wealthy. They're millionaire next doors. They're part of that sort of survey that you referenced. And when they talk about the shiny thing, I go, now let me get this straight. You are wealthy. Why do you want to get wealthy again? You don't need to get wealthy again. We need to preserve, protect, and grow your wealth over time. We don't need to get wealthy again. Yeah, you're right. I mean, and they know that. They know it. That's not our job. Our job is to preserve, protect, and grow over time those assets. So I think we'll conclude with here, but I want to share with you. It doesn't matter, and I always like to bring this around. I don't care if it's relationships. I don't care if it's fitness. I don't care if it's dieting. I don't care if it's money. I don't care what it is. There are no shortcuts. It's hard work. It's boring. It takes persistence. It takes sacrifice, and it takes time. But I will say this. Time goes like that. I remember doing videos during COVID. You were a part of the DIY tribe during COVID. I would get on our DIY tribe and I would do these videos. And
screaming in your car.
I was screaming in the car. But what I would say is, I would say this: do not get lulled into today. This will be over before you know it. Right now, the days are long. The months and the years are going to be short. And we will come out of this, and you will look back and go, oh my gosh, that happened that point in time. I know people who are mentally, financially, physically still stuck in COVID. 5 years ago, they're still stuck there. That's terrible, in my opinion. You've got to be looking ahead, because believe it, before you know it, the time will pass. You will pick up your head and you'll be like, wow, there's another 5 years. So get started now. Be patient, take time, and avoid the shortcut. Anything else?
Crushed it.
Crushed
it! Wrap it up there.
All right.
Soapbox over. We'll start questions on Monday. So if you have a question, send it to podcast@DIYmoney.org.
That's podcast@DIYmoney.org. We'll use it on the show. If we use it on the show, we'll send you a $25 Amazon gift card. Welcome to all of you new listeners or those tuning in on YouTube. Share this podcast with a friend. I guarantee there are people in your lives who need to hear this message or any of the other ones we've done on this Soapbox series, because it's very, very important. And the data tells us there are a lot of people out there, more than ever, that are hurting financially. So share it with a friend, encourage them, inspire them, and help them get on the right financial path. Remember, friends, the secret to wealth is pretty simple. Live on less than you make. Invest the rest, and do so for a very long time. Make it a great one.